I wanted to also ask you about the broader social reforms that the government's looking at, particularly pill testing. We've seen the police take a strong stance, at least the Force Command, saying at the moment there's no plans for us to change our view on it. Police Association have been out there firmly against introducing a pill testing regime. This week, the Premier said she'd take further advice, and it seemed to indicate to some observers that the government may change its stance in Victoria, of course, with ACT going a step in introducing that. From a police point of view, and as a former police officer, would you at all back any circumstances where pill testing would be introduced?
Yeah, I've personally been against it for a long period of time because I'm of the view it's okay to say no. So we need to say to kids and young people it's not okay to take drugs. The outcome, again, we've seen multiple people either dying or in severe injuries due to taking those drugs. And even the testing may not have picked up on that. We need to improve the amount of counselling we've got available for these kids for addiction. We need to make sure that kids can get referrals and referred into the right direction rather than going in and saying it's okay to have the drugs at these festivals.
Is that going to stop overdoses, though, at festivals, an approach such as that?
Yeah, look, I can't say it will stop any of the overdoses there, but the reality is what we want to see is make sure kids have the education and better education to not take the drugs. The Police Command, the Police Association have said it would be too hard for them, more difficult for them. We need to make sure that we're backing the police, backing their word and trusting them. We've had a committee go around the world, which I know Fiona Battin was on at the time, that ended up coming back, and the then now Emergency Services Commissioner, who went over there with an open mind, came back saying, no, we shouldn't have pill testing.
Just finally, I just want to ask you, you've obviously been in the Parliament for some time. The Premier, Daniel Andrews, obviously last year resigned, and everyone's been waiting to see what he may do next. And today we find out, courtesy of the Australians, Damon Johnston, that there's been 2 companies that Mr Andrews has registered with ASIC. Criticism that one of those companies may have a shareholding held by a Chinese-Australian businessman. Is there any concerns at all from the opposition about this? I mean, you know, is the former Premier allowed to do what he's allowed to do?
Well, I suppose you get to a stage, he's no longer in politics, he can effectively do what he wants. I think it raises questions, though, around the fact he spent $88,000 to travel to China and didn't take any media and hasn't disclosed what he's done over there. Was any of that involved in setting up his post-politics career? Because that was in a very short period of time after. These are questions the feds get asked all the time, who they deal with after. I think it should happen the same in the state. Daniel Andrews needs to come out and just explain what he did over there originally using taxpayers' money, and has any of that been used to set up businesses for his own, feathering his own nest in the future, or putting anything with our sovereignty at risk in the future for dealings with the Chinese government.
Yeah, it's interesting you raised the China trip. Of course, media weren't invited on that trip, and freedom of information requests we've put into the government certainly put back information, but pretty regimented, and stuff is redacted too. Well, I digress. Brad Battin, appreciate your time, and thanks very much for coming in to the studio today.
Thank you, Simon.
All right, well, Brad Battin there, who's the Liberal member for Berwick, of course. Yeah, I almost said Gembrook, didn't I there, Brad? But, of course, your old seat after the redistribution. Appreciate your time. And, of course, we did invite the Victorian Government onto the program today to speak, and we have so far not had a acceptance.